I'm Jesse De La Peña from Vocalo Radio, and this is my interview with Chicago drum and bass DJ Phantom 45. Let's get into it.
Yeah, my name's Brian, Phantom 45 from Chicago, drum and bass DJ. Been playing since '87.
It's good to get you back in the studio.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. Very long time. The Neo days.
What I'd like to do is maybe give a little background for folks that maybe know the name. Maybe some folks are just discovering Phantom 45 mixes out there on the interwebs. Let's talk a little bit about the early days. How did you get into the music?
DJing in general?
I'd say music in general, and then maybe into DJing.
Well, I've been into music since I was little. I can remember being in first grade, second grade, and the concert band would come in from different high schools and stuff like that. And just listening to them, just hooked me. Just the power of hearing a big concert band and and the percussion is what I liked the most. So, and it basically just took off from there. I played drums in school and middle school and high school and stuff like that, and graduated into DJing when I was, I think, probably freshman year. Sold my drum set, bought a pair of 12s, old, I think, Hiatus mixer, playing a lot of hip house, stuff like that, which, there's no drum and bass, no real techno scene back, in Chicago. Well, at least were the circles that I ran into. It was more like new wave, house, just your typical Chicago,
Mix shows,
BMX, Bill, Julian, Frankie, all them guys. And then started working at a record store, Hot Jams, 92. It's been a long time. Worked there for a couple years, started DJing. Well, was still DJing, but switched my style. I was actually trying to find my style. So I was playing a lot of early UK hardcore breakbeat stuff, a lot of techno stuff, a lot of stuff you'd hear from Hyperactive and stuff like that. Who the old guys like Mr. Happy, James Johnson, Sergio Cruz, all them guys. You know what I mean? Would go to the raves and hear them. There was really no drum and bass or jungle scene, going on at that time. So I met up with, like-minded people, Roger, RP Smack, and he started throwing shows. And then there was more and more, from working in the record store, I was getting more promos, stuff in from Moving Shadow, Reinforce, Suburban Bass, all them labels. And so I had first dibs. So, and I was playing it out as much as possible. A lot of little small little parties, 500 West Cermak, all the little illegal venues and stuff like that. There was no clubs. We weren't getting any kind of club support whatsoever, only for the fact that I think that nobody even knew about it. It was very, very underground. Moved on to raves. The rest kind of just took off from there.
You mentioned early influences, DJs, Bill, Julian, all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Who are some of the other ones as you were kind of coming up?
I like Chicago style of mixing and New York styles more. A lot of long blends, wild pitch stuff. DJ Pierre, stuff like that. A lot of the New York guys like Murillo. I like the Chicago sound, but the New York style of mixing maybe. Or maybe just the guys that I heard all would blend for half of the record with the other half of the record. And I found that to be the challenge. Instead of just in and out, I do like the edit stuff, the Bobby D stuff back in the day. That was good for what it was. But for me, I wanted to express myself. What I want to do is kind of take it on a long ride instead of just, in and out.
So as things started picking up and, the scene started coming together here, can you talk a little bit more maybe about the Midwest rave scene? Because that's all prior to the drum and bass scene.
Yeah. So, they kind of was running parallel. It was kind of separate, but together. It was weird. It's there was the main room. You had, your Terry Mullen, Nigel Richards, Hyperactive, say at the Oak Theater. And then we were in literally the hallway with a little sound system, trying just to beat it out and get, as much exposure as we could. It's hard to convert people to drum and bass. Well, people say that, but I think it's easy. I've never had a problem with it. It's just you have to play the right kind of drum and bass. Now, a lot of people that play, jungle, drum and bass are very passionate, such as myself, but they'll, they want to beat it down your throat. Can't do that with anything, you know what I mean? Because once you do that, people are no. Having the influence from Chicago and house music and stuff like that, you have an ear for music, you know what I mean? And I could tell you if something sounds good, you just play it and, and I know I could hook them with, that way. Because drum and bass is it's aggressive, you know what I mean? If you've ever been a drum and bass show or a jungle show, you got an MC up there and he's barking at you and, there's this crazy amens going all over the place. So, yeah, it could be a bit much.
Around this time, who are some other DJs coming up in the drum and bass scene? The rave scene you kind of touched on, but who were some of the early Chicago drum and bass DJs, and maybe you got some influence and, your peers?
I mean, we were all basically playing off each other. Like, we would go, like, my buddy Danny Wildchild, Ben Dr. Gru, DJ 3D, Snuggles and Slack, DJ Fix. I mean, there was a handful of us, and we were all, pretty much together. But we would go to Danny's basement, and we would sit down there and mix for probably, 7 to 10 hours and just, berate each other, just to be better and better. And, like, if you would go off a little bit, everyone would, nudge at him or whatever and give him the business. And that's just the way it was. And it just made everyone a better DJ, I think. Not even trying to do, I don't think we're down there trying to be better. We're just trying to have fun. It was just the result.
I'm Jesse De La Peña, and this is my interview with DJ Phantom 45. So some of the early parties I remember at Liars Club, Empty Bottle. Can you talk a little bit more about how it kind of kicked off here in Chicago?
Well, it kicked off at Liars Club. It was called Brock Out. Scott Mannion put it together from Dub Shack. He was friends with Herb from Liars, and he kind of finagled his way into there to get us a night. I remember the first night, it was freezing cold. I think there was like 2 feet of snow. And there was still like a line that came down. And I was shocked because I didn't think there was that many people that were into it. I think they were more excited to hear drum and bass in a bar where they could get a drink, go to the bathroom, and it's not a warehouse, and they're worried about their car getting broken into. And it kicked off, and it was crazy. It was a small space. The sound system for the time, was great. It was a very do-it-yourself lighting system. I remember there was like a strobe light that I would control. I would kind of pitch it up. As the build-up came, I'd pitch it up as well. But it was just a really good time. That's what kind of kicked it off in Chicago. And there were still raves going on and stuff like that. But I think, that was the catalyst for all of it.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the drum and bass scene in general? Kind of from the early days to its present state. In Chicago, where's drum and bass jungle?
I think it's pretty much in the same state as it's always been. I mean, it's not great and it's not bad. It's just there. It's better than it's been. The drum and bass scene in general, I think, is having like a resurgence worldwide. And I think it's, it's about to become a little bit bigger in the States than it did the first hit, maybe in like the early 2000s.
Let's talk a little bit about Bass by the Pound, kind of when they came on the scene. That was a pretty long run.
That was probably the best drum and bass night in the city as far as bringing talent in from across the pond. I mean, it was like the way that Respect in LA is doing it now. If you go, to see like their monthly, every week they have someone from out of town. Would it be Goldie or whoever? I mean, everybody. And it was the same thing with Bass by the Pound. It was, Andy C, Groove Rider. I mean, just throw a dart, to drum and bass DJ in London, and they were there.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely took it to another level. Yeah. A lot of the names, you were buying the records and stuff, and finally experiencing some of these guys in person here in Chicago. There was a lot of things going on, different scenes.
Yeah.
If you were into hip-hop, you were into house, but I think more people were exposed to it because, the rave scene definitely introduced it.
Yes.
But when you had a regular Wednesday or whatever,
right.
that just added so much more.
Yeah, it was very popular, so you had a lot of people coming, for their first time that were going just because the seminar Bass by the Pound night was, it was huge. So people would come check it out. So maybe you had some converts, you know what I mean? People like, oh, great, I don't know what this music is. I love it. And now, the thing about drum and bass, once you love it, it's stuck in you and that's it. It's not going anywhere.
Big shout to all the other crews that, along the lines kept the torch going. The MIAs.
Yeah, the MIA guys.
And definitely want to shout out Renan and DNBID. I mean, you always have the early days.
Right.
You have the seminar, which, the peak.
I mean, you need all of them. You just can't have all big nights. All them little nights make up the greater whole of the drum and bass scene in Chicago, and I think they're needed. I just did a little Sunday daytime at Nighthawk outside. It was all drum and bass heads, played a nice little liquid set. People enjoyed it. Nights like that and daytimes like that, I think, are needed.
Big up to Stunna. I've been catching him,
Yeah.
doing his thing on the production. Over the years, I've been out to support some of these nights. I've played some of these nights. You kind of take it for granted.
Yeah, you do take it for granted. Like, you do think it's going to be there. I mean, and you got to give Ben and Alfonso and them guys a lot of credit because, they do this all the time. They're constantly, it's a thankless job. And I think kind of too. I mean, Ben puts a lot of, work into it with like merchandise and this and that. And his passion is greater than mine. In a sense, as far as with drum and bass. I mean, I love it, but I mean, he's out there.
He's pretty hardcore.
He's doing the legwork.
Yeah.
And I just want to show up and play.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's artists and there's the promoters and everybody in between.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned your set recently at that night, played a Liquid set. Let's talk a little bit how your style, talk about the transformation.
Well, back in the day, we were playing whatever we can get our hands on because, I mean, there wasn't that much. So, you always had, in a sense, like, I wouldn't say fighting, but infighting with DJs. Well, I'm going to play this song or I want to play that song. You know what I mean? When you're at a party where now you're not really having that problem because I'm not worried about playing a song that Danny's going to play because we have a completely different style. I'm not worried about playing a song that Stun is going to play because we have a completely different style as well. As far as, I mean, the music has constantly evolved, I think, just with the technology itself. I think with music production, I mean, you could hear it. You know what I mean? I got back into this. I've been out of this for probably 10 years. I've been working in nightclubs and managing and all that stuff. So basically one day I kind of just was sitting there and I have probably 10,000 records. And I'm like, I'm not going to do anything with these records. People want these records. Have been asking me for years. I would just give them to them, but I'd rather, I'd like to make, a little bit of my money back. I was listening to, the drum and bass that was coming out now. And it's at the point I knew it could reach, 10, 15 years ago. I knew where it was going. You know what I mean? I knew it would finally get to, and then here it is for me, for what I like. I just woke up one day and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of these records. Took them all out, sold all the records, used that money, bought a new controller, and I basically was just going to use it to, make a couple mixes. And that spiraled. Finding out that I could record right on the controller into a wave made it even easier. So now it's like, I could download something from Bandcamp or Juno and literally have it in the mix within, seconds, or, I could buy a couple tunes and have it out the next day.
Pretty cool.
It is pretty nice.
It's like DJing in the future.
It is. I love it. I mean, I was always like, vinyl. I mean, I wasn't like I'm strictly vinyl, but I liked the vinyl format. But using, a controller and using, I could, seeing the waves, I feel that I could be more creative with it too as well, with the technology as far as like looping and things you can't do with, a record. You don't have to worry about a record skipping. It's always going to sound the same. I don't know. There's so many things to go into.
I'm Jesse De La Peña, talking to Chicago drum and bass DJ Phantom 45. So this is a nice segue into the new mix series. Obviously, you got the bug again. You're putting out mixes and stuff.
Yeah, at a fever pace.
Exactly. I mean, from the idea you say a few mixes you're going to do, and now it's turned into, I don't even know what the number is right now.
I started I think I looked at my Mixcloud page. I think it's been 5 months, and there's 26 shows now. Maybe I'd say 9 of them are all remastered, like old mixes that people like. A lot of these are up on like YouTube, I've seen. Like if you search like Fan 45 on YouTube, there's a lot of mixes like live that I've never even heard or ones that I've put out but are very poor quality. So I had all the masters, so I took them over to Danny's. We ran them through, Logic and this and that and boosted them up, and it made them sound the best that they're going to, being from 92.
Were
they,
they
92, 97,
Were they mastered on cassette or DAT?
DAT player. DAT player, and I use a 4-track on some. I just put out the Jungle Book one that everyone has been, and that's just like, everyone's just like, they're all over on Mixcloud. Because you can see your stats on there, and it's like, it's just climbing. Like number 1 on the UK hardcore, you know what I mean? I'm like, this tape is from 97.
Let's talk about the Jungle Book. I mean, that's probably the most popular one I know of in Chicago.
Everybody talks about that.
What was the story with the photo on the back? Who was in the photo? They just threw somebody in the photo. Somebody was it Milty or?
I think it was Milty.
It may have been Milty.
You know what? I haven't thought about that in probably 20 years. But yeah, I do remember that.
It was somebody we knew.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the drum and bass scene. But I always wondered why he was in the photo.
I think it was like a group photo or something or in there. But I think he might have been like mislabeled as an MC too. It was something strange like that. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Well, it's funny because I put these mixes out in the 90s, and, there was a long, time period between each one. A very popular one was Dusted Fader, Dry Gulch, Jungle Book, obviously, and then there was Summer Affair, Sneak Twice, 45 Glide. So I maybe would put out 2 a year. So now it's, 15 in the last 5 months. I mean, there's so much more music, and it's like, I've been digging, I've been out of the game for 10 years. So I'm like, well, I put out more music in the last 5 months than I have in my whole career of DJing. I'm like 87, which I find funny.
So I want to talk a little bit more about, the scene when you were doing a little more traveling.
Pre-social media.
Pre-social media. You and Danny were doing a lot of time on the road.
It was nonstop. It was like we were on the road at least every Friday and Saturday. There was weekends. It was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One of them weekends, it was like a Sunday in Chattanooga. You don't really get any sleep. And I think I'd been up for, like 4 days, basically. Sleep here and there. You sleep in the airport, you sleep a little bit at the hotel, depending, connecting flights. It was crazy back then. I remember just coming back into my hotel, and I'm like, what time is checkout? My flight is at 5 o'clock. And they're like, well, checkout's at 11. You'd have to pay for a night. And I didn't care. I didn't care how much it was. And it was funny because it was only like $30. and I had been on the road for 4 days. And so I had like $2,500 in my pocket. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It was thank God there's no social media, because it was wild, like New Orleans every year, Mardi Gras. Oh my.
Yeah, New Orleans was definitely a stop you and Danny would always make. I remember that.
Yeah, it was Disco Donnie, I think he still does stuff, like EDM, big EDM shows, stuff like that. He was a big pioneer for the rave scene. Even like the Rave Act, they try to like lock everybody up or, stop people from doing it. He was a big pioneer against that. But I think everything worked out.
You're tuned into Vocalo Radio. We're checking out an interview with Chicago drum and bass DJ Phantom 45.
I'd like to dive into maybe the past 10 years of you running places, managing. We're talking Neo, we're talking Lava Lounge, Debonair Social Club.
Well, yeah, everything kind of...
What was the segue from...
We were on the road, like I said, 15 years. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like it, but we were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some periods, that were greater than, in that time. But it was nonstop. It was every weekend. And I couldn't do it anymore, just for the fact, I just wanted to, just be home. I was just tired of airports. I can only do it so long. I'd love to do it. It's fun. You're getting paid to go out and party and, and play music, and everyone loves it. It's a good time. But you do anything for too long, and it's just too much. So I kind of stopped, and my buddy, Phil and Ty from Bass by the Pound, they had small bars. Because I'm like, I'm just going to stay home. So I started working there. I was even doing the door there, and then they had an opportunity to buy Lava Lounge. So they're like, well, you want to be the music director? So I went from there, and then Lava, and then we moved Lava to Milwaukee, and then Lava changed. It was weird how things, happen, at the same time. So they were changing Lava into the Exchange, which is more of like a craft cocktail bar. So at the same time, Phil's wife knew the owner's daughter of Neo, and they were looking for a new manager. So it's kind of like, my brother's sister's cousins seeing you know what I mean, type of thing. And I went in there and talked to Lee, the old owner, and I just, got the job and did that for, 8 years, 9 years, I'm not sure, until that finally closed, just due to the landlord didn't want to renew it. That was a great time, too. Neo taught me a lot, too, as far as, you got to be responsible. Toilet breaks, you got to make sure you're there the next day at 2 o'clock, with the plumber. And it's good structure, just being there, not being crazy and on the road and God knows where.
Did you hang out at Neo early days?
No. I knew of it, but I never went there. I got the job before I even stepped foot in there. My expectations were it was going to be a little bit rougher, nightclub from 7, the movie, or, just crazy, or 8mm. And it wasn't. They're the nicest people I've ever met, like the goth people and this and that. And they listen to very hard, aggressive music, but they're all real sweethearts. You know what I mean? I was like, this is going to be easy.
So you were there when they closed the doors.
Yeah. That was crazy too. The news was there. There's a line down from Neo, down Clark to Fullerton, headed west. It had to be 7, 8 blocks. It was crazy. It was insane.
Yeah, that venue in general, sparked a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Susan Shelton.
Yeah.
I mean, the sound.
Jeff Moyer, Jeff Payson,
Yeah.
all the, Bud Sweet, all them guys from there.
The sound, that new wave sound.
Yeah. I wish I would have been there in like the early, you see like the early pictures of Neo, and it looks like kind of like the studio. It's very like clean. It looks like an old like Polish kitchen almost, with some nice neon. And when I get there and it's like, it's Arkham City, it's pretty rough. And, but in a good way, everything changes and evolves, Industrial scene kind of took that over.
So then you head over to Debonair.
Yes. So we were on the run. So Cal and Kenny, everyone knows Cal and Kenny, from Crowbar, from Kaboom, everywhere. And Neo was Cal's like baby, his first club. So he's busy in Florida right now, just designing like, hotels. He's got his place full. So Kenny came over and, decided to take this Neo on the run. So we went over to Steve Harris, who's, like I said, everybody knows everybody in the city. So that's the one thing I do like about the city is as messed up as the industry is, everyone kind of has this camaraderie together, that you all know each other. They knew Steve Harris. Steve Harris had Debonair. We started doing the Neo nights there, so I started managing there. Aside of the, on the weekends, because we did the Neo nights on Thursdays and some Fridays. And so, he basically gave me a job, thank you, Steve Harris, for back then. And then the pandemic hit. And then that was it. Because, nightclubs, restaurants took forever to, open back up. And we were the last. And then when we opened back up, I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. And I started working at my buddy's restaurant.
Well, it's been a nice little journey.
Yeah. Now, I'm kind of like remembering it right now as we're talking. Because you don't even think, you don't think about it. This whole, starting this mix series was it wasn't meant to like take off, like start doing gigs again. Well, some people are more excited about me coming back than I am. And they're like, oh, I got this. So I've already played in Cleveland. I got a show coming up a couple shows in Florida, Philly, so all the, I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'll take one last run at it. A couple shows in Chicago here and there too, underground shows in October. I'm like, I might as well just take another run at it. I'm just cooped up in the house with my dog making music. I'm like, let me get out of the house and make a few bucks.
But you're doing it on your own terms now.
True. Yeah, I didn't have, then, it was, it was a job like anything. It was to pay the bills, but it was, back then it was also the passion. It was just like, to get that music out there. Like, I don't know what driving force that was in me, just like that people needed to hear this and needed to hear it correctly the way that I see it, I guess. But it was there. And it's here now, Actually, I have to give a big shout out to my friend John Mork, one of my best friends. He is integral in this whole mix process as well because he's doing all the artwork. I don't know if you've seen all the artwork. And, and people love it. There's a lot of like little Easter eggs. My dog's in all of them and this and that. And I feel that art and music, need to go together. Because if I don't think these mixes would be as successful as they are if the art wasn't there. If I just put up, very like old school Bad Boy Bill, Hot Mix number 1, Hot Mix number 2, but everyone loved Hot Mix 16. But that's a big part of, why he's so successful. And it's fun, and he likes to do, he's a great graphic designer.
Yeah, big up, Mork.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Definitely got to get a mix from John. It's been a little while.
Yeah, he's out of the game. He is in Seattle, zenned out. He's a graphic designer at Amazon, and he's into bonsai trees. And he's big into it, like big.
Like no more music?
I don't think he's producing music. He was one half of the Sound Republic. It was him and Frankie. And he's just kind of chilled. He's married now, just sitting back. He did go to the Goldie show that was in Seattle this past weekend, Saturday. He said it was great.
Let's talk about Westfest. Is this the first drum and bass?
The first bass by the pound night. So Phil has always done the Westfest stage. So it's mainly been house music on Saturday, Sunday. Fridays are kind of fairly new. Last year it was like Heather, Super Jane, Colette, Dehoda. And it was more of a house
Lady
thing.
D.
And Lady D, that's right. I've played the Westfest before, and I've played like a 2:30 slot, 3 slot, on a Saturday, And drum and bass, but very light, liquidy stuff. Like, I know what to play for the people. And Phil's caught the bug. Like, everyone's caught the bug again. It's like drum and bass flu. And I'm like, just give me, a decent time slot on Saturday at like 5:30 or 6, Give me a crowd. I'm going to reel them in. I can get them. I know it. So I think that kind of sparked. He's like, you know what? We're just going to do the whole Friday. So
Nice.
The Friday is like a bass by the pound night. So I'm playing 7 o'clock right before Anna Morgan, Nikki Nair. So they're more like bassy, jungle, new school kids, this and that. Phil's playing as well, DJ Intel, and Easy Jack.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's gonna be fun. So 7 o'clock, I'm gonna have a nice crowd there. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, should be fun. What's the date on that one?
July 7th.
Awesome. It's the whole weekend.
It's the whole weekend, yeah. 7th, 8th, and 9th. So yeah, Nitzer Ebb is playing on Saturday, which is crazy.
You buried the lead.
You know what I mean?
Nitzer Ebb is playing at Westfest.
Nobody knew about it. Everyone's like, wait. And I thought, like, wait, Nitzer Ebb is going to be on Chicago and Damon.
Yeah.
Yes. I go, okay.
Is it both of them? Is it one guy?
I don't know. I don't know who it is. All I know is it's going to be a sea of black shirts. You know what I mean? It's like when ESG played.
Yeah, that was impressive.
I'm like, wait, they're playing Westfest.
The real ESG. The ladies.
The ladies, yeah. And they were phenomenal. I think they sounded better than they did, recorded. They sounded really good. It's going to be a thing to see, Nitzer Ebb play join in the chat.
Yeah, it's a good lineup, but that's what people are really excited about.
I kind of feel bad for Farina, but listen, he's playing the opposite side at the same time, but he plays every year. He'll get over it. You still got Derek on Sunday, so.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, Brian. Well, thanks for coming to the studio.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm looking forward to the Mix Series and hearing your set.
Yeah, the Mix Series is on Mixcloud. There's so many shows out now. So many mixes up now. All you got to do is Google Phantom 45, Mixcloud, and it's going to come right up.
Perfect, man.
Okay.
All right. We'll be back, guys.
You're tuned into Vocalo Radio. I'm Jesse De La Peña, and now's my conversation with Chicago drum and bass DJ Phantom 45, recorded summer of 2023. Things are going well for Phantom. To find out more information about his brand new tour with Chicago DJ Danny the Wild Child, go to jumpupandroll.com. You can find more features like this on our Mixcloud page. Go to mixcloud.com/Vocalo Radio. Thanks for tuning in.